You want to talk about breathing? Let's talk about breathing. Hey guys, it's KJ Bell, and welcome to the first video in my vocal technique series. Maybe it'll be a series, I don't know, it's just going to be a bunch of videos. So, we're going to talk about breathing today, because everything else that we do in vocal technique is moot if we don't get a good breath. So, I'm going to be talking about a couple of different stages of breathing, and I'm stealing some terms, because you know how I like to steal things. These are stolen from the book The Diagnosis and Correction of Vocal Faults by James C. McKinney. I would show it to you right now, but I don't know where it is. Moving does that to you. So I'll include a link to the book on Amazon in the description so you can check that out. It's a really good book. I suggest you buy it. But in that book he talks about 4 stages of breathing. There's inhalation, suspension, phonation, and recovery. So the inhalation is, of course, breathing in. The suspension phase is unique in that it only happens when we're singing. It doesn't happen when we're talking. The other 3 do. We inhale when we talk, and phonation is what I'm doing right now when I'm talking, and then there's a recovery period where my body kind of resets itself before I take a breath in, right there. But the suspension phase is where everything engages so that you can begin to sing. And we'll talk about that in the next video. We're going to focus mainly on the inhalation, but there's the stages. So, we have our inhalation, and the problem that comes with the inhalation is that singing and talking are very different from each other. And especially when it comes to the breath that we have to take. You probably couldn't hear it, but I just heard the breath that I took before I started this sentence, and it was very, very high, very gaspy, very not very substantive at all. But we can talk like that all day long, and we don't even notice that we're not using a whole lot of our lungs. Your lungs actually go much deeper than a lot of people think. They're much bigger, and they need to be filled fuller for singing so that we have a good amount of air to use. So there are 3 kinds of breaths that I talk about in my teaching, and there's all sorts of shades of gray in between, but you know. Number 1, the gasp. So there's a sort of shoulders often accompany the gasp, but it's a very high breath that only uses the top part of your lungs, and that hiss also indicates that there's probably some throat tension going on. Number 2 is Darth Vader. So we get this. Now Darth Vader is much better than the gasp because at least you're usually using more of your lungs. But the sound, the still indicates that there's probably a little bit of tension in there. The ideal breath is, and you probably didn't hear anything. Maybe you did, maybe like a little bit, maybe like a little something, but whew, I have so much oxygen right now, which is good. I like it. So, 2 images that are helpful to get to that ideal breath. This is 4. 2 images. 2 images that are helpful to get to that breath are, first off, to think of drinking the air rather than breathing it. That tends to get rid of any of that throat tension that we get with and then there's the idea of a water balloon. If you think about the water balloon, here's the top of the water balloon. The water comes in, it hits the bottom, fills out, and fills down and out before it comes up. So that's how we want to think of filling the lungs before we sing. Which is super easy to say, but how are we going to do it? So in order to get that nice water balloony breath, we're going to do 3 different things. We want an expansion all the way around our torso because our lungs are going to push everything out of the way. But we're going to take that in stages. So first we're going to focus on the front of the body. So what I want you to do first is make a diamond, like this. And make sure that the tips of your fingers are touching. Don't do an overlappy thing. So you're going to take that, and then you're going to slap it over your belly button. And then you're going to breathe into the middle of that diamond. And you should get a slight separation of your fingertips, just like that. Now I'm sitting down, but this should ideally be done standing. And just do that for a few breaths. This is not a time for vanity. You want to get fatter. So that's the way I focus on the front. And the front is where I tend to focus with my students most, because there's fewer things in the way, and it's the easiest sort of thing to, I mean, you just look down and you can see the expansion happening. Now let's talk about the sides. So, go back to your diamond, but take it apart, keep your hands in the same shape. And now we're going to take our thumbs and find the bottom of your ribs. I hope you can see that. And kind of poke and then breathe. And focus on moving your thumbs outward. That's a good one for that. Now, I'm sitting down. And this is the ideal spot for the first of the back breathings. You can do this one standing up too, and it does pretty much the same thing. So all we're going to do is we're going to bend over, like so, and then you can put your hands on your lower back. I find that's nice and helpful, and then you can just breathe. I had a teacher in college who was obsessed with back breathing, and I never felt like I was getting it exactly the way that she wanted me to. I'm sorry, Rebecca. But that bending over thing is a really good way to bring awareness to that. Now, of course, we want that expansion to happen all the way around. It's just nice to isolate each of those three areas. And the isolation is good, but it can be difficult for some people to get them together. So, one exercise I like to use, well, I like to just pay attention to what the body naturally wants to do. So one of the first things you can do is, before you go to sleep, while you're laying on your back, or anytime you're laying on your back, because it's very hard to take a bad breath when you're lying down for some reason. The trick is to get that going when you stand back up. But before you go to sleep, just pay attention to the breath, and pay attention to what the body does just before you go to sleep, because then it will start to sort of kick in instinct-wise. But another thing you can do, and I love doing this with choirs and with students, is take a breath, exhale everything out, and then wait to inhale until your body is like, no, we need to do this or we're going to die. Like so. Just don't pass out. Like, you don't want to try to go for too long. Just go until your body's like, okay, let's breathe. Because it will then open up everything and take in the air the best way possible. That's, and again, the trick is to replicate that without depriving yourself of oxygen. So there you go, there's my basic breathing thing. You can check out a link below to an article with pretty much the same information, just a little bit more detail. And check back, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be having videos on breath support, breath, getting this proper space in the what's this called? In the head? I don't know. Proper space, and getting resonance going and all that sort of stuff. I'll be doing a lot of vocal technique things, warm-ups, all that good stuff. So check back, and yeah. See you later.